After frustration on draft night watching Trayce Jackson-Davis fall through the second round, we learned some new information that adds a new perspective to it all.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. You are Locked On Hoosiers, your one and only daily IU podcast. We are part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Free and available anywhere you guys get podcasts, including over on YouTube. Thanks for making us your first listen, as always, guys. I'm your host, as always, Jacob Rude. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. There was a lot of frustration on draft night as we watched Trayce just fall through the second round. We learned some interesting information, especially when it comes to the Pacers and why he is not on the Indiana Pacers like a lot of people thought he would be. We're going to talk that and do a little bit more analysis, on him and Jalen's fit with their new teams. To do that, we brought in a old friend of the show. Been way too long since we've had you on here, bud. Jared Gosule. Jared, what was just kind of your reaction on Thursday to see a couple new Hoosiers join the NBA?
Well, my first reaction was that I was happy for you as a Lakers fan,
Yes.
Jalen. That was my initial thought, was just to be happy for you to enjoy that. My second thought was then, okay, when is Trayce going? My third thought is he's better than every single player that's been picked for the last about 25 to 30 picks now. And then he tweeted angrily, and then both of our teams passed on him again in the second round. And then he got his moment, which made me really happy. And we'll obviously get into that a little bit. But listen, our guys got their moments. Couldn't be happier for them. And just excited to talk fit and see where they go from here.
Yeah, I talked on Friday's episode that a lot of my frustration around Trayce is I just wanted him to have a moment where he was drafted. He had the party in Indianapolis, which there was video that came out of him being drafted, and I'm glad he was, even if it was the second to last pick, because he got to have that moment of having everybody cheer for him, getting to put on the Warriors hat, just getting to celebrate, even if it was after some frustration. And we learned some context behind his tweet that you mentioned. And I mentioned it on Thursday, or I mentioned it Thursday night on Friday's episode, that about midway through the second round of the draft, he tweeted out, I'm trying to bring it up right now, but it was a very, you'll regret this. Yeah, y'all will regret this. I promise you. What we learned is that wasn't just at the fact he was falling through the second round. So let's look at the context of this. So I think a lot of us, myself included, thought that Trayce Jackson-Davis to the Pacers made sense. And it sounded like the Pacers were interested in Trayce Jackson-Davis. But when it got to the point in the second round where the Pacers had shot after shot after shot at drafting him, even late in the first round, they pass on him with the 22nd pick, but then they had the 34th and 56th picks and did not draft him with either one. We learned that the Pacers wanted their second round picks to agree to two-way deals because their roster stands at 15, which is the most you can have. Trayce didn't want to sign a two-way deal if he was drafted. The Pacers asked him, he said no. And they said, all right, we're not going to pick you. Trayce knew that there was a team out there or teams that were going to offer him more than the two-way deal. He knew that the Warriors were very interested in him. But it wasn't just the Pacers that were asking him to sign a two-way deal. It was a number of teams calling during that second round, and they were putting it out there, Trayce and his camp, that we're not signing a two-way deal. Draft us and give us an actual contract, which is what led to that angry tweet, is that nobody wanted to give him an actual contract. until the Warriors, I officially traded it up into the draft. They weren't initially supposed to pick 57th, but they get the pick from the Wizards. They draft him at 57, and to prove Trayce right, he gets a 3-year deal, a actual NBA contract, 3-year deal with the Warriors, despite being the second to last pick. I mentioned this on Friday that it doesn't really matter what number is next to his name, that the fit mattered more, and the fact that this team valued him. So what is your kind of thoughts on him slipping through the second round and landing, and what is a good situation for him in Golden State?
I mean, this couldn't be a better spot for him, right? It's a good organization that knows how to treat its players right, that has tremendous success taking people from the bottom of the first round, second round, drafting, developing them, giving them real roles, real minutes. You and I sort of talked about on draft night how this could not have been a better spot for him, given what the front court looks like in Golden State. He's really just got obviously some things depend on what happens with or without Draymond. Personally, I wouldn't actually mind them bringing Draymond back because I don't think there could be a single better player in the NBA for him to learn from. A guy who never developed a jump shot, never really had any interest in developing a jump shot, but consistently has been the plus player for Golden State, the X factor. It could not be a better person for him to learn from. So I hope they bring Draymond back because that would be really, really good for Trayce's development, I think, to learn from him. If not, regardless, that opens up a lot of minutes in the front court. Really just, I think, really behind Kevin Looney. And you know how Golden State likes to play small ball. So Trayce at the 5 would make a ton of sense. He's a fantastic ball screener, which is 80% of the offense that they run in Golden State. He's going to be able to run the rim, get rebounds aggressively. And especially with Golden State, the good thing about them is when teams try to beat them and when they try to beat other teams, they go small and force other teams to go small. So he's not going to be, he's not going up against Jokic for the most part. He's not going up against, forget Jokic. Even got a guy like Joseph Nurkic on the Blazers. He's not going to be going up against these dudes who are 7'2", 320 pounds. That's not the system that they're going to set him up with. They're not a team that's going to set him up for failure. So could not be happier with this landing spot for him.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, kind of in my initial reaction to this, all things considered, I don't know that there's a team that's a better fit for his play style. It's just the Warriors had a pick in the first round, and then it looked like it was done. So when he didn't go to them in the in the first round, I thought that opportunity had passed, but they really liked him, and trading up to get a guy is obviously a great indicator that you want that player. Also giving him a 3-year contract as a number 57 pick is as well. Their front court is barren right now. It is Kevon Looney. It is Jonathan Kuminga, who is built just entirely different to Trayce Jackson-Davis. Those two can probably play together more than they'll be competing for minutes. And then that's it. Draymond Green may not come back. I presume he will come back. And so, as you said, there might not be a single player that it would be a better mentor for him than Draymond. They have Trayce has a similar skill set to Draymond in that, as you said, no jumper. He's a good playmaker, a good screen setter, can read the game well, and can play well enough defensively to hold up in those small ball lineups. Trayce can learn from Draymond on how to read the game, how to put yourself in a position to still have success despite being someone that doesn't have a jumper. There was a brief stretch where Draymond was kind of a jump shooter. It was mainly just like Game 7 of the 2016 finals. But outside of that, he's not someone that teams, especially at this point in his career, they don't guard him. So Trayce can learn. They're not going to guard him early on. Trayce can learn how to take advantage of that. And the other point is this is a team that runs a ton of ball screens, or not even just ball screens, just screening actions. And Trayce, and maybe an underrated skill of his, one we didn't discuss on here a lot, is his ability to set screens and how good he is at it. So he's going to be setting screens for Steph Curry, for Chris Paul, and for Klay Thompson, among others. There are not three better guys to learn how to be a screener for than those three. Those are three of the best guards kind of coming off ball screens. So this is a terrific situation for him. It came with some frustration on draft night, but if you'd have told me at the end of the night that Trayce would be on the Warriors, I'd have been thrilled, regardless if it came with the 57th pick or not. He's going to get playing time. They value him, and he's going to, as he said, he's going to make a lot of teams regret passing on him. I'm really excited to see what he does with Golden State. You have any kind of last thoughts on that or anything about him going out to California?
No, wish he was on my favorite team. Can't wait to see him in Pacific Standard Time. It's all that matters. It's all that matters is that Trayce got what he needed. He got what he wanted. He got what he needed, and I'm just really, really happy for him. Who wouldn't be?
Yeah, exactly. I think all IU fans are just excited to see him drafted. The flip side to all this is that Jalen Hood-Schifino, there was no doubt that he was going to be drafted on Thursday. He goes to the Lakers. Again, found out some more information that makes this even more exciting for him. We'll talk about that here in a minute. First, baseball season is in full swing. There's no better place to get in on all the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets. If your first bet doesn't win, just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to join today. Don't miss out on your chance to snag the no sweat first bet. You can bet on the Reds to win because they're doing that a lot. You can bet on the Yankees to not win even. So whatever it is, there is no risk because it is that no sweat first bet. When you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on, FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. Big thanks to you guys for making us your first listen every single day. Every dayers this week on the show, we'll do some more season recaps and start to kind of look forward towards next season. We're getting into the middle of the summer. We also have some recruiting updates as always during these summer months. Let's talk Jalen Hood-Schifino, who went number 17 to the Lakers. I know that's the enemy team to most fans, especially Indiana basketball fans, but I'll try to spin this in a good way because this seems like a great for Jalen Hood-Schifino. I didn't know this beforehand. It kind of makes sense in hindsight. He grew up a huge Kobe Bryant fan. He talked to the media after being drafted Thursday night and spoke about how big of a Kobe fan he has been. Despite growing up in Pittsburgh, Kobe was his favorite player. He watched Kobe all the time. And I say it makes sense in hindsight because if you go back and watch the video he tweeted out or posted whenever he committed to IU, he's wearing a Kobe jersey the whole time, and he committed on Kobe Day, which is 8/24, August 24th. So he's not just talking the talk. He's walked the walk before then. He grew up a Lakers fan, a Kobe fan. He sounded absolutely thrilled, excited to get to go to the Lakers. He could not have picked a worse color suit to wear, when being drafted by the Lakers. That green suit was a choice already, and then he went to the one team where they were going to not like that. But outside of his choice in suit, what was your reaction to Jalen going to the Lakers?
It wasn't a shock at all. There was, the Lakers did a pretty good job of keeping their pre-draft workouts pretty quiet, but I thought it was a little bit interesting that he was one of the names that was very much out there. It's a good fit. He's a great basketball player. I don't know how he slots in immediately. That's more of a question for you, given your knowledge of the Lakers lineup. But I just I think it's a good fit. I My only concerns are if the Lakers do the Laker thing where they want to make a win now move, yada yada. But if you want to talk, long term fit, this is fantastic. Jalen Hood-Schifino is going to be a fantastic NBA player for a very, very long time. Working with, in the now, working with a guy like Anthony Davis who can set him a screen, either roll to the rim, sit back, pop a three, pop a jumper from the elbow, gives Hood-Schifino so many options. And as much as we love Trayce and as much as we would do anything for him, it made things a little bit hard on Jalen Hood-Schifino in college with Trayce being the primary ball screener and everyone knowing where Trayce was going. He wasn't sitting at the elbow. He wasn't sitting out for a three. He was running to the rim, and so was Jalen. So I think that really, really opens up a lot of potential for him, especially as a type of secondary ball handler in this offense. Going out there, we know he's a bucket getter when he needs to be. We've all watched the Purdue game probably more than once. That that little floater that he showcased that game, because I watched a lot of the film after he was drafted, just because to throw a little smile on my face. And that floater was on show that day. I mean, he was incredible, but especially in that mid range, heading towards the basket, hitting that little floater. That's a shot that's going to be available for him in the NBA. And that's a shot that's going to make him a lot of money in the NBA if he can find some consistency with it. The three ball is what it is. He's a 19-year-old kid. Development doesn't stop at 19. So we can harp on him being a three-point shooter or not being a three-point shooter or not having hit what we thought he could be as a three-point shooter. It doesn't matter. He's a 19-year-old kid. No one knows what he's going to look like in 3-4 years. If that falls, he's going to be, that three ball is going to be the difference between him being a very, very solid NBA player for a very long time and him being a 150, 200 plus $1 million player come his second, third contract. So, long term, who knows what he projects as, but I mean, everything we saw this last year with his defense, with his on-ball intelligence, with his off-ball intelligence, with his ability to get a big, not just a bucket, but a big bucket when you need it. These are traits that are going to keep him in the league for a very, very long time. And I'm really excited to watch him play in this league. It's very, very different from Victor. When we had Victor come into the league, it's very, very different from when we had Romeo Langford come into the league. I think Romeo was like the 14th, 13th pick, late lottery, right around that same spot. And the ceiling for JHS is just so much higher than Romeo's was. And I'm just really excited to see him play, man. I'm excited to see him play against this level of competition, because it's one thing to pick on a guy like Zach Edey who can't move and has only beaten Indiana once the last 2 years and can't win in the tournament. But it's another thing when he's got to hit that floater against, say, I hate to bring this name up, but like a Rudy Gobert, against someone who's going to anchor that paint, who's a bit more mobile than a guy like Edey. But man, he's going to be fun in Los Angeles. And I'm really happy that he got to go to a place that he very clearly wanted to be.
Something that you mentioned and something I've talked about and talking about Jalen Hood-Schifino at a number of places over the last couple of days is how much he's going to benefit from spacing in the NBA. And to your point about Trayce was an incredible screen setter, but there was one direction he was going after setting those screens, and it was to the rim. And if you watch, I mean, everybody watched IU, but specifically watch when Jalen comes off the screen and Trayce is rolling, there are 5 guys around the rim because everybody knows where that ball's going to, like where option 1 of where that ball's going is. And that's what led to all those mid-range jumpers for Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's going to excel having 2, 3, 4, maybe even 4 guys he can kick out to for 3-pointers coming off those ball screens. He had 1 in Miller Kopp this year and never really any more than that. Tamar Bates had like a couple games, but that was it. And so that was one of the things I noted, just kind of looking at his tape again and kind of applying it to the NBA is that he was incredible in the pick and roll at IU. And now he's going to be able to add things to that just by the nature of not having 5 guys with a foot in the paint. And so I'm really excited to just see that part. As you said, he has Anthony Davis there, who is another great screen setter and another great versatile offensive big man. I would imagine Jalen's probably going to be, not probably, he's going to be the backup point guard or kind of a backup guard. LeBron runs with the second unit a lot, and I would imagine there's going to be a fair amount of Jalen and LeBron pick and rolls. And if you want to talk about a guy who can do a bit of everything as a roll man, whether it's shoot threes, short roll, get to the rim, whatever that is, that's LeBron. And so that'll be fun to watch. But as you said, just seeing him kind of develop there, the ceiling is really, really high with him. If he can develop that jumper and kind of stretch it out to the 3-point line, if that is the next step in his development, then yeah, he's going to be a really, really, really good player in the NBA. The Lakers are always an interesting situation, and I mean, they needed guard help. They have another number of guards specifically that are going to be free agents. So that is maybe part of the reason they drafted him, but odds are he's going to be third, fourth string guard. He's going to get minutes, but this is definitely a kind of a long-term play by the Lakers, which I don't hate. I mean, there's not, as I said on Friday, he's not going to have the pressure of needing to like carry a franchise in any sort of way, but he is going to have the pressure of needing to contribute to a contending basketball team. It's a different kind of pressure, but I feel like he can flourish in that. He's a big game player, and we saw that a number of times, as you mentioned. But there's also going to be those rumors, and the Lakers are always in the middle of trade rumors, and Jalen's going to be one of the most tradable assets that they have. So we're going to see if he can kind of block that out as well, because he's going to be discussed a lot, whether he excels or struggles. He's going to be in those trade rumors. So it's going to be an interesting situation for him, but it's one that I would imagine he wanted. Like, he probably wanted to be a Laker if you would have asked him going into draft night based on what he talked about afterwards. So there's excitement there as well that he gets to go to a franchise that he's been a fan of for a long time. Again, IU sitting 2 guys to the draft, 2 guys to the NBA. Super exciting. And I kind of want to touch on that and the momentum behind this program that Mike Woodson and his staff have built here in just a moment. So as we kind of zoom out and look big picture at the program right now, it's something we've talked a lot about on the show when it comes to recruiting, but this is kind of a different level. It's a different type of momentum because you have 2 guys that are drafted. And especially, I think, when it comes to Jalen, having a guy be, I mean, almost a lottery pick, but going to the Lakers and having him on TV all the time, having him in that conversation, this just feels like, I was trying to think back to when the last time it felt like we've had this much momentum as a program. It's been a while. Does it just feel like the program just has a different vibe to it right now?
It does. It feels like, I guess the way to put it is, it feels like now with Archie gone, the caretaker's gone, and we've got a grown up in charge.
You're not wrong. It's just, God, I hated the Archie era so much.
Didn't we all? But look. The big thing when we hired Mike Woodson, the big thing, before he coached a game, before he recruited anybody, before anything, the first thing that we and probably every Indiana insider, every Indiana adjacent person brought up was that he's coached in the NBA. That's a big selling point when you can go to recruits and say, look, I coached Carmelo Anthony. I, I coached Pete Carmelo Anthony. I coached Amare Stoudemire. Like, I know what it takes to make it in the league. I know how to develop you to become an NBA player. And now this is the first time that we can finally see a little bit of the fruits of that. Do we know what they're going to translate to the NBA? Of course not. But this is the first time we've sent two guys to the league since Cody and Victor were lottery picks in 2013, I think it was. I mean, this is something that's new to us at this point. Even during our peak years, we weren't a Kentucky where we were sending four different guys to the league, and who knows what they're going to be. But this is just such a great selling point for the program that we can just say, hey, look, they're in the league now. We got them. We got them there. Trayce, again, for every good thing that he's done for this program, for every good thing, and I will never, ever, 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 ever say a bad thing about him, has always been a pretty one-dimensional player when it comes to his offensive game. And his skill set is not something that's super in demand in the NBA. It just isn't these days. And to still be able to send a guy like that into the league, and not just a guy like that, a guy who's of legal drinking age. The NBA doesn't like guys who can drink legally. They don't draft people who can legally drink. They don't draft people who can go to Kilroy's. They don't do that. So to be able to show that, and also have a guy on the other end of the spectrum who's Jalen Hood-Schifino, who came in, I think in the preseason, I vaguely remember, mock drafts having him right around the bottom of the lottery. And he held firm throughout the whole year, whole process. He didn't drop off. He wasn't a guy who just sort of came out of nowhere. He's a guy that came into Indiana as a projected lottery pick, played 1 year of phenomenal basketball, and left as that borderline lottery pick. So to see that sort of momentum carry over, I think it's a big selling point to recruits. And I have a little bit of a take. I don't like that I have this take.
Fire away.
I think these two will be better NBA players than Victor and Cody were. And that's with the hindsight of knowing what Victor's career has become, because obviously if Victor's 100% healthy, multiple time All-Star, that's you just can't. It would be offensive to compare anybody to that. But knowing what Victor's career has sort of become and looking at his career accolades, I don't think it's crazy to say that Jalen Hood-Schifino could be a player in that mold to get a big second contract. I don't think it's crazy to see that Cody's made $100 million in his NBA career, and he's never really been that impactful of an NBA player. The Miami Heat will tell you differently after this year, rightfully so. But Trayce could easily become better than Cody was in the league, or a more impactful player, given especially where he's drafted. It's one thing if he got drafted to a nightmare of an organization, or he's stuck in a log jam behind 3-4 different guys. He's on a 2-way contract, so he's going to be in the G League half the year. That's not the case. He's going to come in and be a major impact player, and Cody's career probably goes a little bit differently if he doesn't wind up in that mess of an organization in Charlotte. But I could really see JHS and Trayce, their careers surpassing Cody and Victor. I really could.
I was just looking up how long those two have been in the league, how much money they've made. It's both a high bar, but also I don't know how much more either guy is going to be around. Cody was on the Heat. He wasn't good for a lot of it at times, but he was on the Heat. He's made about, kind of rounding it, somewhere around $85 million in his career. Vic has made around $120 million. But again, his latest injury, that's going to be really, really hard to come back from. But both those guys are 10-year veterans. And those two guys are two of the – so IU has sent two guys to the NBA 3 times since 1994, so the last 30 years. It was DJ White and Eric Gordon in 2008, Cody and Vic in 2013, and OG and Thomas Bryant in 2017. So this is now the 4th time, I guess, since 1994. This feels a little bit different, and maybe this is some recency bias, but when Cody and Vic went, that felt really big, but then there was kind of nothing after that. Your next year was Noah Vonleh. And I don't think anybody wants to remember Noah Vonleh's time in Bloomington. And then nobody was drafted until OG and Thomas Bryant. And that didn't feel like this feels right now with Mike Woodson and the momentum that they're building in the transfer portal, on the recruiting trail, and sending guys to the NBA. As you said, that was going to be the thing that when Mike Woodson came here was supposed to be the thing he was going to absolutely nail. That like he knew what it took to get to the NBA, and he can get guys to that point. I think Trayce is the better example of that between the two of them, because as you said, Trayce is he's not the type of guy that NBA teams generally like. He's a big man that can't shoot and is closer to being able to rent a car than drinking age of 21. So that's not a draft-friendly type of prospect, and yet here he is still not just drafted, but as we've said, wanted by a team. So pair that with everything that they're doing on the recruiting trail. The coaching staff, members of the coaching staff were at the draft FaceTiming recruits saying, hey, look where we're at. Like, you can be the next one of those guys. And on the note of the next one of those guys, for the real sickos out there, the 2024 NBA mock draft, there is one out from ESPN and Jonathan Gavoni. I didn't know it until you shared it to me. So I guess you're one of those sickos. But Kel'el Ware is projected the number 11 pick in the draft. Mackenzie Mbako is projected the number 31 pick, the first pick of the second round. So we're going to be right back in this situation next season. And I think that's going to be the big thing now. If IU wants to keep building this momentum, is if you look back at all those previous years, when they sent two guys to the NBA, they followed it up by not really doing anything. DJ and Eric Gordon went, and then nobody was drafted until 2013 when Cody and Vic went, and then it was Vonleh and nobody for the next couple seasons. OG and Thomas Bryant went. That was the Archie era. I think that that says enough. So the challenge now is to keep building this momentum. And right now it's really early, but you're looking at a situation where, again, you're going to draft night. Two guys are going to be taken. You continue building that momentum. So it's an exciting time to be an IU basketball fan. And it's been a while since we can say that. We're really burying Archie in this podcast, but he deserves it. It's been a while since we could really say that about IU basketball. I couldn't be more excited that Mike Woodson is the one in charge, and he has us pointed not just in the right direction, but just zooming in that right direction. So it's going to be fun, exciting to see what the future holds, whether IU can make good on this 2024 recruiting class that they've made tons of inroads in with the top guys. This draft feels like a big springboard that you can use to really nail some of those commitments in that class. So hopefully guys do commit, and if they do, we will have it here for you on Locked On Hoosiers. Thanks as always, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every single day. Every dayers this week on the show, we will have updates on recruiting. It's the summer. Guys are making visits. We'll get you the latest on who might be coming to Bloomington. Follow us on Twitter, as always. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave a rating and review. All of that great stuff. Appreciate the support, guys. And as always, LEO.